Well, hey everybody, it's Pastor Brent here again on Thursday, March the 19th. I actually think that yesterday's devotion, I sort of mentioned that it was Thursday yesterday, and that's just a result of not knowing what day it is, because one day seems to be blurring into the next with all the things that are going on in our world. And so thanks for tuning in as we continue to self-isolate and maybe try and connect a little bit, at least online, through staying in God's Word together. And just so that you know, I'm going to make an announcement, and you can spread the word. I'm going to get the word out in other forums as well, but we will be canceling our Sunday morning worship service again for this coming Sunday, and as we begin a second full week of social distancing and the cancellation of services and programs at the church. This is kind of new territory for us. I've mentioned that before, but this week I've been talking to a number of people, including a couple of 90-year-old ladies, and I asked people, like, have you ever seen anything like this before in your lifetime, where whole communities seem to be shutting down and all services are being suspended? And they assure me that they haven't seen it. So, I mean, it is something that we're all just kind of learning as we go along, and thanks for hanging in there with us. I want to just take you into the book of Proverbs again for a few minutes here this morning. And again, into the book of Proverbs, I'd like to take us into chapter 3 and just the next couple of verses, right after the verses that we talked about yesterday. And this is what they say. By the way, I trust everyone is keeping safe and making good choices these days. And this is a little bit about making choices as well. It says this in Proverbs chapter 3, verses 9 and 10. It says, "Honor the Lord with your wealth and with the best part of everything you produce, and then he will fill your barns with grain, and your vats will overflow with wine." Honor the Lord with your wealth, because, everybody likes to talk about God and money, right? It's something that we kind of avoid talking about as much as we can. And somebody might also say, well, it's easy for Solomon to talk that way anyway, because he was one of the wealthiest people who ever lived. And so he had lots that he could honor the Lord with, in a sense. And it's absolutely true. He was one of the wealthiest people who ever lived. But even if we look around us, we can always find people who have more than we have. And one of the running jokes in my family, when we were growing up, I'd see my uncles and aunts use this phrase all the time, where they'd be laughing with somebody and they'd say to them at some point, "If I had your money, I'd burn mine." And what they mean by that is that compared to me, you have a lot more than me. And the reality is that we can always find people who have more than us, and it makes us feel as though these kinds of verses in the Bible don't apply to us. And yet, compared to most of the people who are living on the planet even today, we are, in our culture, some of the wealthiest in the world. Wendy and I had an opportunity with Compassion Canada a number of years ago to travel to Santo Domingo and Dominican Republic and visit some of the projects where children were being sponsored through Compassion Canada by people just like us. And across the table from us at a lunch one day were some sponsored children, teenage girls really, that we were talking, and they were asking us questions about where we lived and what it was like and what our houses were like. And we were trying the best we could to explain that to them. And at one point, one of the girls kind of lit up and she said, "Oh, do you have a chimney in your house?" And I thought this was a great point of reference. I thought maybe she'd seen pictures of houses with chimneys like that before. And so I kind of got excited. I said, "Yeah, we have a chimney." And when I said that, she turned away from me and she turned to the neighbor sitting beside her, another young girl, and they just began to speak to one another in Spanish. And I don't know Spanish. So I asked the interpreter who was there, I said, "What's going on here? What are they talking about?" And the interpreter explained to me that in their culture, in their world, if somebody had a chimney in their house, it was a symbol of great wealth. And, that was kind of lost in translation a little bit, because I would have liked to have been able to explain to that girl that, we have a chimney there in order to keep us warm in the winter, and that's one of the big functions that it has there. But for them in their world, to have a chimney meant that you could cook indoors, and it was just a symbol of great, great wealth. And the reality is that we do have great wealth in our world compared to most people who are alive on the planet today. And if Solomon was here, he would tell us that means we also have a great deal of responsibility. He would tell us to honor the Lord with our wealth and with the best part of everything that we produce. Like that God doesn't just deserve what's left over after all the bills are paid and we've had bought all the things that we want otherwise, and the the shelves in our pantries are full. God deserves the very first cut. And then it's interesting that he tells us that if we do that, if we honor the Lord with our wealth, that our barns will be full and our vats will overflow with wine, which in those days was a symbol of even greater wealth and greater abundance. And just in case anybody's wondering, this, by the way, because some people misconstrue these kinds of passages, this isn't Solomon's get-rich-quick scheme that he's talking about here. It's not a pathway to comfort and privilege. When we allow ourselves to begin to think that way, it is a sign for us that we have adopted the presuppositions of the world that we live in, and it's not healthy. All this is really saying to us is that when we honor God with our wealth, the wealth that we have by giving him the best part of it, the very first part of it, God sees that, and that we shouldn't be surprised if then he trusts us to be generous with even more. Friends, in a world where viruses are affecting people financially and there is more uncertainty than usual, this is going to be a real test of faith for some of us. But in the midst of it all, again, as we make choices that honor God with what we have, the wealth that we still have, don't be surprised to find that not only will it increase faith in your own life, but that you might be given the opportunity to honor him with even more. Because as a good friend of mine from our church family says to me all the time, you can never outgive the Lord. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. I just want to say we won't be back tomorrow or Saturday. I won't be doing one of these tomorrow or Saturday. I'm going to take a 2-day break from these daily devotions, but look for a new entry on Sunday again as we begin a new week together. On this last full day of winter, God bless you, stay safe, and stay faithful, everybody, and we'll see you the next time on the first Sunday of spring. God bless.